Clarity is power. It's one of the most fundamental truths when it comes to setting goals that truly work. Think about it. How can you hit a target you can't see? Yet, so many people walk through life setting goals like, I want to be successful, or I want to get fit, or I want to be rich. But those statements are too vague, too blurry. They don't inspire focused action, and they don't lead to results. That's because your brain and your actions need precision to function effectively. Clarity transforms a dream into a mission. Let's look at an example. Suppose someone says, I want to get healthy. What does that mean? Does it mean eating more vegetables? Does it mean losing 20 pounds? Does it mean running a marathon? Until it's clearly defined, it remains abstract. But once that same person says, I want to lose 15 pounds in 90 days by working out 5 days a week and reducing my sugar intake, everything changes. The vague wish becomes a sharp goal. It now has direction, specifics, and can be measured. The human brain craves structure. It needs to know what to aim for. The clearer the goal, the easier it is to make decisions aligned with it. You don't just act, you act with purpose. Clarity also has a powerful psychological effect. When you are clear about your goals, your subconscious mind begins to work for you. It begins to filter your environment to find resources, opportunities, and people that align with your objective. It's almost as if the world starts to cooperate simply because you've made a decision. But if you're unclear, you walk past doors that are wide open. You miss connections that could change everything. The mind cannot focus on uncertainty. That's why clarity is your secret weapon. Clarity removes hesitation. Most people procrastinate not because they're lazy, but because they're unclear. When you don't know exactly what to do, your default response is to do nothing. But when you're clear, action becomes automatic. Every decision you make is filtered through the lens of your goal. You ask, does this move me forward or does it hold me back? That simple question can eliminate distractions and double your productivity. You begin to value your time differently. You begin to operate at a higher level. Clarity is also the foundation for momentum. Once you know what you want, you can break it down into smaller, actionable steps. You stop being overwhelmed by the size of the mountain and start focusing on your next step up the path. Every little win fuels the next one, but you can't build momentum on ambiguity. Try pushing a car without knowing which direction it should go. It's a waste of effort. But with clarity, every ounce of effort propels you closer to your goal. And let's not forget, clarity brings confidence. When you're clear on what you want and why you want it, your self-belief grows. You stop second-guessing. You stop asking permission. You stop needing validation. You become focused, decisive, and grounded in purpose. That kind of clarity is magnetic. It draws others to you. It attracts support, mentorship, and opportunities because people are naturally drawn to those who know where they're going. Now, achieving clarity doesn't happen by accident. It's a process. You need to ask yourself meaningful questions. What exactly do I want? Why do I want it? What will it look like when I achieve it? How will it feel? How will it change my life? Get specific. Use numbers, deadlines, visualizations. The more detail you give your mind, the more it can latch onto the goal and begin to work for you. Take time to reflect, to write, and to define. You don't need 10 goals. Start with one, but make it clear enough that there's no misunderstanding. If someone were to read your goal aloud, would they know exactly what you're trying to achieve? That's a good test. And remember, your goal doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be clear enough to act on. You can adjust as you go, but don't start in a fog. In life, you don't rise to the level of your intentions, you fall to the level of your clarity. So if you truly want to set goals that work, goals that wake you up in the morning and keep you disciplined at night, begin by sharpening your vision. Know what you want with such precision that no part of your day is wasted wondering what to do next. That's the power of clarity. That's how real change begins. A goal not written down is only a wish. That's the difference between a fleeting thought and a commitment. Writing your goals down is not just a formality. It is a fundamental shift in how you engage with your future. It transforms your goals from abstract ideas into something tangible, something you can see, touch, and review. There's something powerful that happens when you put pen to paper. You take ownership. You move from saying, I hope, to declaring, I will. When you write something down, you take it out of the chaotic swirl of thoughts in your mind and give it a form that can be acted upon. The human brain processes written words differently than spoken or imagined ones. Writing it down helps solidify the goal in your consciousness. You begin to see it not just as a possibility, but as a project you're now responsible for. It becomes more than a desire. It becomes a contract with yourself. You see, people think they're setting goals all the time. They say, next year I'll save more money, or one day I'll start that business. But these are just casual conversations, loose thoughts, vague intentions. Until it's written, it doesn't really exist. Writing forces you to clarify. You can't write a fuzzy goal. You have to choose your words carefully. That act of choosing forces clarity. It forces you to decide what you really want. And once it's written, it becomes real. It's something you can revisit. So you can look at it each morning and remind yourself of your purpose. This is how you stay focused in a world that constantly pulls your attention in different directions. When your goal is written and visible, you keep it top of mind. It becomes the filter through which you make decisions. You ask, does this move me toward or away from my written goal? Writing also creates accountability. Think of it like a personal contract. When it's on paper, you can't pretend you didn't commit. You can't forget what you said you would do. And more importantly, when you write it, you signal to your mind that this matters. It's no longer a fleeting desire. It's now a priority. That shift in mental energy is huge. It influences your habits. Your focus and your persistence. Don't just write your goal once and throw it in a drawer. Keep it somewhere visible. Carry it with you. Put it on your mirror, your desk, your phone's lock screen. Rewriting your goals often, daily, even, can reinforce your commitment. Each time you write it, you rewire your brain. You deepen the emotional connection to the goal, and that emotional connection is the fuel that keeps you moving when motivation dips. There's also something to be said about the emotional impact of writing. When you write your goal, include the reason why. Don't just say, I want to earn $10 in a month. Say, I want to earn $10 in a month so I can give my family the life they deserve, travel the world, and live with freedom. That emotional why gives your goal a heartbeat. It turns numbers and deadlines into meaning and purpose. And purpose is what gives you the strength to persist. Writing down goals also makes tracking progress easier. You can compare where you are today with where you plan to be. You can measure, you can adjust, you can refine. But you can't do that if everything's floating around in your head. Your memory is not a reliable storage space for your dreams. Get them out of your head and onto the page. And here's something else. When you write down your goals, you're planting seeds. Seeds that grow over time. You might not see the harvest immediately, but the act of writing is the act of planting. And just like you wouldn't plant a seed and expect a tree the next day, you don't write down a goal and expect instant results. But you water it with action, with belief, and with patience. And one day you'll look back and realize that it all started when you put it on paper. So take the time, pause your distractions, get quiet, think, reflect, and write what you want. Write why you want it. Write what it will look like when you've achieved it. Put it in your own words. Own it. Because when you write your goals, you don't just create a to-do list. You create a life plan. It's one word at a time. Setting a goal without a deadline is like setting sail without a destination. You might drift, you might move, but you'll never arrive. Deadlines create structure. They add urgency and they force you to act. One of the most common reasons people never reach their goals is because they leave them open-ended. They say things like, I want to lose weight, or I want to write a book, but they never say when. That's the key. Without a timeline, a goal becomes a someday dream, and someday is not a day on the calendar. When you add a deadline, everything shifts. Suddenly, the goal is no longer a vague future hope. It becomes a time-sensitive mission. Your mind begins to organize itself around that target. Your priorities change. Your behavior changes. You begin to measure your days differently because now each one counts. Time is no longer something you have an unlimited amount of. A deadline puts pressure on you, not in a stressful way, but in a focused way. It creates a sense of healthy urgency, the kind that wakes you up and keeps you moving forward even when you don't feel like it. Think about how people behave when they're up against a deadline. Students write essays the night before they're due. Professionals finalize reports just before the meeting. People hustle when the clock is ticking. The difference between procrastination and productivity is often just a deadline. When you set one for yourself, you create that same energy, that same focus, without needing outside pressure. You take control of your time. Now, some people avoid setting deadlines because they're afraid of failure. They think, what if I don't make it? But that fear is the very reason you need a deadline. It creates commitment. It forces you to be honest with yourself. Without a timeline, it's too easy to push things off. You convince yourself that you're thinking it through or waiting for the right time, when really you're just avoiding action. A deadline ends the excuses. It demands a decision. Will you move forward or not? The beauty of deadlines is that they allow you to reverse engineer your success. Once you know when you want to achieve something, you can work backward to figure out what needs to be done today, this week, this month. It gives you a roadmap. Instead of trying to do everything at once, you can break your goal into milestones. These smaller targets keep you motivated. Each one is a win, a sign of progress, and each one gets you closer to the finish line. Deadlines also help you evaluate your pace. If you're halfway through your timeline but only 10% toward your goal, you know it's time to adjust. Maybe you need to increase your effort, change your strategy, or eliminate distractions. But at least you know. Deadlines give you data. They give you feedback. They help you stay on track. Without them, you're flying blind. Another benefit of setting deadlines is the sense of closure they provide. When you set a deadline and meet it, there's a sense of achievement that builds confidence. You begin to trust yourself more. You develop discipline. You prove that you're capable of following through. And that self-trust is priceless because once you believe in your ability to follow through on one goal, you start setting bigger ones. A well-set deadline is also realistic. It's not about creating panic. It's about creating purpose. You don't have to set impossible time frames. Give yourself room to stretch, but not so much that the urgency disappears. The sweet spot is when the goal feels challenging but achievable. That's where growth happens. That's where you find your edge. And remember, deadlines are not set in stone. Life happens. Things change. If you need to adjust the date, do it, but do it with intention. Don't push the deadline just because you lost motivation or felt tired. Push it only if the circumstances truly demand it, and even then, set a new one immediately. Keep the pressure on. Keep the goal alive. In the end, a deadline is a declaration. It says, I'm serious about this. I'm committed. I'm not just wishing I'm working. That kind of mindset attracts progress. It inspires action. It moves you out of daydreaming and into doing. So if you want your goals to work, don't leave them hanging in the air. Put a clock on them. Set the date. Circle it. Work backward. Start moving. Because a goal with a deadline becomes a mission, and a mission is how success is built. Setting a goal is only half the equation. Wanting something doesn't make it happen. The truth is, a goal without a plan is just a wish dressed up as ambition. You can say you want to write a book, start a business, or get in shape, but unless you create a strategy, a step-by-step path, nothing changes. You remain stuck in the same place with the same frustrations, wondering why nothing is happening. Goals are the destination, but plans are the map. Without the map, even the clearest destination stays out of reach. It's not about having everything figured out on day one. No one starts with all the answers. But you need a basic framework, a rough sketch of what action looks like. You have to ask yourself, what does progress look like this week? What should I be doing today that aligns with my goal? Action doesn't begin when conditions are perfect. Action begins when clarity meets intention and is followed by a plan. The most successful people aren't the ones with the biggest dreams. They're the ones with a system for getting things done. Let's say your goal is to build a successful online business. That's a worthy goal. But what's your plan? Do you know what kind of business model you'll use? Have you identified the skills you'll need to learn? Do you have a timeline for launching your product or service? A plan breaks down a large, intimidating goal into small, manageable tasks. Without it, the goal becomes overwhelming. The mountain seems too high to climb. But when you plan, you realize you don't have to reach the peak today. You just have to take the next step. Planning also keeps you grounded in reality. It helps you see the resources you need, the challenges you might face, and the time commitment required. It forces you to be honest about what it will take. Many people fail not because the goal was too hard, but because they never accounted for the effort involved. Planning gives you foresight. It allows you to anticipate obstacles, prepare for setbacks, and stay flexible when things don't go as expected. But a plan isn't something you make once and forget. It's a living tool. It should be reviewed, adjusted, and refined as you progress. Every action you take gives you feedback. What's working, what's not, what needs improvement. Use that feedback to sharpen your plan. Adapt, but don't abandon. When the goal is fixed, but the method is flexible, success becomes inevitable. There's also a deep sense of confidence that comes from having a plan. When you know your next steps, you don't hesitate, you don't waste energy wondering what to do next. That clarity allows you to focus your effort where it matters most. It minimizes distraction and helps you avoid time wasting activities that look productive but don't actually move you closer to your goal. Planning also connects your goal to your daily routine. It bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. This is where transformation happens, not in the grand idea, but in the daily execution. If your plan says wake up at 6 a.m. and write for an hour, and you do that consistently, then the book gets written. If your plan says save $500 a month for the next 12 months, and you follow through, then the savings goal is reached. Discipline comes easier when the steps are clear. Too often, people confuse motion with progress. They stay busy, but they're not moving forward. A well-thought-out plan eliminates that confusion. It defines what progress looks like. It says, this is what matters today. Focus here. And that kind of focus is powerful. It turns average days into productive ones. It turns wasted energy into real results. Planning also gives you milestones to celebrate. When you hit a target along the way, no matter how small, it motivates you to keep going. You build momentum. You create evidence that your effort is paying off. These little victories are not just emotional boosts. They're proof that your strategy is working. And that proof builds belief. And belief fuels persistence. So don't just set goals. Build a plan. Sit down. Think it through. Ask questions. Outline steps. Break things down. Make it so simple that there's no confusion about what comes next. You don't need a perfect plan, just a real one. One that gives you direction and makes your goal practical. Because when you stop wishing and start planning, you stop waiting and start building. And that's how dreams turn into achievements. One planned step at a time. Consistency is the glue that holds your goals together. It's not the big, dramatic actions that create success. It's the small, disciplined steps repeated day after day. Anyone can be motivated for a moment. Anyone can get excited for a few days after setting a new goal. But the real test comes in the quiet moments, the ordinary days, when no one is watching, when you don't feel inspired, and when progress seems slow. That's when consistency becomes your greatest ally. Because in the end, the people who reach their goals aren't always the most talented or the most intelligent. They're the ones who show up every single day and do the work. Success doesn't respond to convenience. It responds to discipline. You can't go to the gym once and expect to be fit. You can't eat healthy for a week and expect lifelong health. You can't write a few pages and expect to finish a book. The process demands repetition. It requires that you build habits, that you install routines, and that you commit to them, not just when you feel like it, but especially when you don't. Consistency is what transforms actions into habits and habits into results. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They set huge expectations, try to do everything at once, and burn out quickly. But consistency teaches you the value of steady progress. If you read just 10 pages a day, that's over 600 pages in a year, roughly 12 full books. If you save just a 10 a day, that's over 600 saved in a year. These small, Consistent actions build up, and over time they compound. This is the power of momentum, and consistency is how you build it. Consistency also develops trust in yourself. Every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you tell yourself, I can be counted on. You strengthen your identity as someone who takes action, who follows through, who honors their word. This self-trust is vital, because without it, you start doubting everything. You question whether you'll stick to the plan. You second guess your motivation. But with consistency, you silence those doubts, not through positive thinking, but through proof. You show yourself through action that you are serious. There's also a hidden benefit to consistency. It reduces decision fatigue. When you build a routine, you remove the daily debate. You don't ask yourself, should I do this today? You just do it, because that's what consistent people do. They don't waste time negotiating with their excuses. They've already made the decision in advance. That's what makes habits so powerful. They automate the important things. And the fewer decisions you have to make, the more energy you have to focus on execution. But consistency isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. You will have off days. You'll miss workouts, slip up on your diet, lose focus, or feel unmotivated. That's part of being human. What matters most is that you return. You get back on track. So you don't let one missed day turn into 2, then 3, then a total collapse of your goal. Consistency is built not on never failing, but on always coming back. It's the return that counts. Sometimes the hardest part is staying consistent when you're not seeing results yet. You go to the gym for a month and the scale doesn't move. You post content for weeks and no one engages. You save money but still feel behind. That's where most people quit. But those who understand the power of consistency know that results lag behind effort. There's a delay. You sow the seed long before you see the fruit. But if you keep watering, keep showing up, the breakthrough always comes. To stay consistent, start small. Don't try to overhaul your life in a day. Build one habit at a time. Make it so simple that you can't fail. 5 minutes of writing, 10 minutes of reading, one healthy meal, one kind gesture. These small wins compound. And once the habit is established, you can build from there. Consistency is not about intensity, it's about identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't break promises to themselves. So if your goals matter to you, if your dreams are more than just nice ideas, then consistency is non-negotiable. Build routines. Show up every day. Do what needs to be done, even when it's boring, even when it's hard. Because in the end, it's not what you do once that defines your success. It's what you do repeatedly, day after day, action after action. That's how the extraordinary is built, through the power of consistency. Accountability is one of the most powerful forces in achieving any meaningful goal. It's the structure that keeps you on course when your motivation wavers. It's the reminder that your actions matter, not just to yourself, but possibly to others who are watching, encouraging, or even depending on you. When you're accountable, you've moved beyond simple intention. You've entered the realm of responsibility. You're no longer just thinking about a goal. You're actively holding yourself to a standard, a timeline, and a promise. And that shift changes everything. One of the biggest reasons people don't achieve their goals is because no one knows about them. They keep their dreams locked inside, safe from judgment, untouched by outside eyes. But what they don't realize is that this safety is actually a trap. When no one knows what you're working on, there's no consequence if you give up. There's no pressure to perform, no expectation to live up to. And without that pressure, most goals slowly fade away. Accountability brings visibility, and visibility brings commitment. You don't have to announce your goals to the entire world. But sharing them with one trusted person, a mentor, a coach, a partner, a friend, can elevate your sense of purpose. Now there's someone who will check in, someone who will ask how it's going, someone who will notice if you stop. That simple fact is often enough to keep you going on the hard days. It's not about fear, it's about awareness. It's about staying awake to your responsibilities instead of drifting into old habits and excuses. There's also self-accountability, which is just as critical. This is the personal discipline of tracking your own behavior, measuring your progress, and being honest about whether or not you're doing what you said you would. Self-accountability is a form of integrity. It's keeping the promises you make to yourself, even when no one's watching. Because at the end of the day, when you cut corners, when you skip the workout, didn't follow through on the project, or let another day pass without progress. And those small breaks in discipline, if repeated, turn into patterns that take you further and further from your goal. But when you're accountable, you interrupt that pattern. You face yourself. You ask the hard questions. Did I do what I said I'd do today? Am I moving in the right direction? What needs to change? This kind of honest reflection builds character. It also builds momentum. Because progress, even small progress, gives you energy. And accountability is how you make sure that progress continues. One powerful tool for accountability is writing down your commitments. Don't just write the goal, write the action steps, and write the deadlines. And then check them off as you complete them. Review them daily. Keep a journal of your journey. Celebrate the wins, but also note the days you fell short. Not to shame yourself, but to learn. This process of reflection turns you into a better strategist. You begin to see what works for you and what doesn't. You course correct. You grow. Another level of accountability is mentorship. Find someone who's been where you want to go, someone who understands the path. This person can provide guidance, encouragement, and most importantly, Perspective. When you're caught in your own head, stuck in your own narrative, a mentor can help you break through. They can see your blind spots. They can challenge your excuses. They can ask the questions that make you think deeper and act smarter. This kind of accountability is invaluable. You can also create accountability by building systems, setting up your environment in a way that supports your goals. If you're trying to eat healthier, clear the junk food from your kitchen. If you're trying to save money, automate your savings. If you're working on a project, set a public launch date. These external structures take the pressure off willpower and place it onto your system. The less you have to decide every day, the more consistent you can be. And consistency, supported by accountability, produces results. Don't wait for accountability to come to you. Seek it, build it, invite it into your life. Be proactive in creating structures that force you to rise to the level of your goals. Because every time you avoid accountability, you give yourself permission to stay the same. But every time you embrace it, you give yourself a new standard to rise to. You become stronger, more disciplined, more focused. And the best part, as you hold yourself accountable and start achieving your goals, you inspire others to do the same. Your discipline becomes a beacon. Your example becomes leadership. And that ripple effect turns your personal growth into something even bigger, something that uplifts others. So if you want your goals to work, don't just make them, own them. Report to them, stand by them, because accountability is not pressure, it's power.